Today we're going to talk about Proctor test, compaction test. A Proctor test is basically a certified lab gets soil sample of where you're going to be sourcing your soil at. They take that sample and they divide it into a few samples, and then they put different levels of moisture, water into it, and then they put pressure on it from about a 5.5 pound weight that makes it more dense. And over the course of those different samples, they're going to find out what's the optimal moisture level in the particular soil you have before it starts to fail or it doesn't reach the optimal compaction. You're trying to find if your soil is too dusty or too muddy. If it's too muddy, you have too much water. It's too dusty, there's not enough water in it. So that test is done to make sure that it's going to be compactable. It could reach a 95% compaction or higher, so that when you build a building on top of it, you don't have any settlement, any failure. In the process of compacting a foundation, the dirt pad, you're going to use heavy equipment to compact it, sheep's foot rollers. You're basically getting all of the air pockets out of the way, any excess moisture. But the Proctor's test actually gives you a baseline of whenever they come and actually do a nuclear test on the site. The nuclear test is gauging the amount of moisture in the soil from whenever they originally analyzed it at the lab. You're gonna have a tester come out here that originally tested the lab sample, and he compares it to what you have here, but he's doing a density test to see, is it at 95 or higher? And that depends on your equipment and the method you use to compact it in place to be at 95%. The moisture that they find to be the optimal from the lab is going to depend on the type of soil that you submitted. Every soil is going to be a little different. In my hand, I picked up some different soil types on the site, because some of it is just the native soil that was on the site, some of it's topsoil. We actually brought in some sand, fill sand. As you can see, this is really silty, really sandy stuff. I mean, it's real loose. This is going to have a different moisture content to reach optimal compaction than your typical clay soils. And so every soil is a little different. They're going to require something different. That's why they do the testing on it before you bring it out to your site, so they can understand what's going to be optimal, and then they test against that to make sure you're achieving it. But we just want to show some of the differences in the soils, but also explain how a compaction test is performed in the lab, where it's more scientific. And then when they come out here, they have a density meter that they use to understand if you've achieved the compaction of 95 or above.